This is John McVane reporting from the Big Land, Alaska. There have always been people in the Big Land since before Athens and Rome became cities. They left mysterious symbols graven on stones, and in the north, scientists now are beginning to date present-day Eskimo villages in hundreds and thousands of years. When the first white men came, Bering, Cook, and Baranoff, they found Eskimos in the north and Indians in the rest of the country. Roughly speaking, that is where the native peoples remain today, 150 years later. What is happening to these original Alaskans? That is the question we asked ourselves as we talked with them. First, with the Indians of the South.
The music you are hearing is the ancient tribal music of the Tlingit Indians of Alaska. It was sung for us by two of the oldest Tlingits and the Reverend Dr. Walter Sobolev, an Indian Presbyterian minister. To learn about the problems of the Indian of today, we went to the Sitka National Monument and probably the finest collection of these totems still extant. The totems are not religious. They tell stories, recall old exploits of the Indians, particularly the Haida Indians. Near the largest totem pole in the world, I talked with the daughter of an Indian Alaskan legislator who, because of her mother's ancestry, is regarded as Indian royalty, Mrs. Ellen Hope Lang. Do the Indians today feel any social distinctions?
Not as much as when I was younger. There used to be a distinct distinction in a few years ago, but now we are...
They were discriminated against, were they?
Yes, they were. There were certain schools we had to go to, and there was then two schools we could not go to. There were some places in society where we could attend, and there were others that we could not attend. These were understood more than signs that were put up saying we couldn't go there. It was an understood feeling. And then more recently now, we are integrated more graciously and more easily into the Western culture way of living.
That is, the young Indian boy and girl can now go to the local high school, no matter where they live.
Oh, yes, That's been true in the last 16 years, especially since our territorial legislature passed a law that there would be no discrimination in education, and so the doors were open. In
this process, have they forgotten their old customs? Do you speak the Tlingit language, for example?
No, I don't. I suppose it's because that when I first started the school, it was better not to be bilingual. You tried to grasp something that was foreign to you, and if you spoke another language, it was very difficult. So the parents have discouraged the use of the Tlingit language or whatever other Indian language they did speak, and so it is something that we are forgetting.
What about the arts and crafts, the things that, like carving these totem poles?
Sadly, I'm afraid that was left out, too, and when we tried to sever ourselves from our own culture in order to be able to grasp the education that was presented to us, we did try to leave behind everything, and included in that was our arts and our crafts. And two, when you're trying to compete in jobs in which other people have better abilities and are more used to it, there's not as much leisure time to go ahead with your carving and your crafts as there used to be. So just the lack of time and the encouragement surely isn't there.
The Indians seem to be in a process of transition from tribal life to something approximating modern civilization. Now, I know you've had an education. Are you one of the rare examples?
Am I a rare example?
Yes, or are there many like you?
Oh, yes, very many. Our population as an Indian people isn't too great anyway. It's under 5,000 altogether. And so we have intermarried, and we have moved into places where education is more available and better living conditions are available too, and so we are. I'm not rare at all. A great many of us are. Many are superior to me, and so it's a thing that's moving steadily ahead.
We headed north to the Arctic, and just below the Arctic Circle, our first stop was Nome. The Indians of the south are chiefly fishermen. The Eskimos of the north are hunters. Some, such as these King Island Eskimos on the beach near Nome, are fine craftsmen in ivory. Paul Tiolana is an important spokesman for his people. When Indian or Eskimo goes to the towns, he usually becomes only unskilled labor, and racial bars act against him, even in Alaska. Education, almost impossibly difficult. For high school, an Eskimo boy must travel perhaps 1,500 miles from his home. The federal government gives some technical training in other states, then they rarely ever return home. We wanted to see a purely Eskimo community, so we flew to the remote village of Point Hope. Point Hope, perhaps the last hunting village on the whole North American continent. 37 hunting families subsist largely on what their menfolk can kill: whale, seal, and ugruk, the bearded seal. In the two big Eskimo towns, Point Barrow and Kotzebue, Eskimo custom and tradition have been overwhelmed. But here, on this spit of land, a people live very much as their ancestors 1,000 years ago lived on this very spot. I was taken through the village by an Eskimo, Lenny Lane. One reason the village finds it difficult to live by hunting is that instead of whale oil for lamps and driftwood for fuel, the villagers now use kerosene and crude petroleum. Of course, they have to pay for it. The empty drums you saw make convenient bridges across marshy land. The traditional houses have sod walls for warmth against the wind, with the jawbones of whales sticking up as bracing or as poles for the clotheslines. Some of the wealthier villages have built wooden, American-type houses, cold in winter, too expensive, but symbols of prestige. The ordinary food of Point Hope is seal meat, which one sees drying near every house. It's good eating. The stewed seal meat tastes something like wild duck with a faint flavor of fish. The Eskimos eat whale and ugruk and fish, and the great delicacy is muktuk. That's small pieces of uncooked whale skin with a bit of blubber attached. It tastes like a delicious nut with a dab of vanilla ice cream on it. It was a pleasure to walk around the village. In my 2 brief stay, I made many friends. They are fine people. One expert said, before the white man came, the Eskimo did not drink, steal, or lie. These were qualities taught by the white man. I wondered about the age of the village, but near shore I saw remnants of an older village, now used as caches for meat. I put a question to Lenny.
How old is this village, anyway?
I wonder how old is he?
This is a pretty small village, Mr. Lane. What do you do when you want to have a good time here?
Oh, big fish. Mostly we like it done.
Leader of the dance was Herbert Kinnevak. The villagers paid us a great, sincere compliment. They showed us dances traditional in the village, never before allowed to be photographed or recorded.
What was the meaning of that last dance, Mr. Kinnevek?
Oh, that's the one. Last one is We call that good hunter. He had 2 wives with them and dancing.
He's just a good hunter who had 2 wives and
2
danced
wives,
with them.
Right.
Tell me, what are these drums made out of?
That's made drum with wood. Frame,
Yes.
and then the skin from the whale liver skin.
Skin of the whale liver.
Mhm.
Now, what's your next dance going to be?
I'm going to dance. Next one will be the old time, I call them top
The top dance?
dancing.
The dance was held in the outdoor dance place with canvas stretched over whale jawbones as protection against the driving wind. The top dance, and it is a kind of fortune-telling. When the dancer pulls the top, it spins and feathers stuck in it may fly off. If they do, it foretells good luck for the village. The last of the 3 dances was the dance of the beautiful woman. She and the male dancer wear masks of whalebone. The man moves only 1 foot, you will notice. The woman never moves her feet. The story is this: the beautiful woman is too proud of her beauty. She refuses this young man and suitors with presents from other villages, and the dance ends when an old man, ugly, crawls into the dance and frightens her and marries her, showing, I suppose, that modesty and good character in a woman should be preferred above beauty. Craftsmanship among the villagers is high, although with both Indians and Eskimos, it is a dying art, since the young folk often don't bother to learn. But the women make beautiful mucklucks, soles of chewed walrus hide, mittens such as those used in the traditional Point Hope dances. The parkas of fur necessary in that land where it is always cold, always swept by a driving wind, are extraordinarily beautiful. These are Sunday best parkas, which you wouldn't wear out on the ice shooting seal or butchering a whale. I had always wondered how Eskimo women were able to sling their babies on their backs. Babies are happy on Mama's back. They just never seem to cry. Mrs. Doris Atangana showed me the technique of getting baby in place. She doesn't need any babysitter while she's out doing her work. The wind blows often across Point Hope. During our July visit, the temperature was only a few degrees above freezing. There is, of course, little wood so far up in the Arctic Circle. This man is lucky. Schoolbook pictures of hens mean little to Eskimo children. They never see such birds. Their eggs are gathered from cliffside nests of a seabird called a murre, a little bird but big eggs, and one will nearly fill a small frying pan. Boats are important to the economy. The one-man kayak has virtually disappeared, but the big umiak, made of walrus hide stretched over wood, is extremely valuable. Dogs, of course, are the only transport to pull sleds or pull boats over the ice pack to open water. About 450 dogs in Point Hope, 371 actually trained and used for pulling. Seal and walrus hides are important for Point Hope families. The snow igloos we used to associate with Eskimos are never made up there in Alaska, except perhaps as temporary shelter for a hunter in winter. Even then, the design is square and not round. In the 2.5 weeks just before our arrival, the men had killed and stowed away 100,000 pounds of seal meat. The ugruk, or bearded seal, is a big beast. He's valuable for hides and meat. The men would go out on the ice pack in the morning an hour before they could see their rifle sights, home an hour after dark. The Eskimos once used harpoons to kill seal and ugruk. Now they have high-powered rifles. The hunter kills his prey somewhere in the ice pack or in shallow water, then grapples for the seal with a grappling iron and hauls him up. Whales are the big game for Point Hope. To reach open water, they cut paths through 6 miles of ice hummocks and mountains, hauling boats and sleds to the edge of the pack. The first boat to harpoon the whale gets a major share, but the next 8 boats that strike or touch the creature also get carefully regulated shares. Before the whale is touched with a knife, a prayer is said. The only 2 white men who live permanently in Point Hope are the Episcopal minister and the schoolmaster. The schoolmaster also acts as a doctor, getting radio advice from Kotzebue, farther south. The only college boy in the village is Axel Toksha, and I had a chat with him.
Axel, I understand that you're the first boy from this village of Point Hope to go to college in, some 30 years or so. What are you going to study?
Well, John, I'm going to try and study medicine if I get to the college.
Why?
Which is, well, for one reason. For one reason, the situation here at Point Hope. We don't have a hospital, doctor, or nurse, or any type of a service. Although we have some sort of a setup here that takes care of the sick ones. But I believe ever since that I was a kid, I always dreamed of having a hospital here at Point Hope. And that's why I'm going to the college to study to be a doctor.
Well, Mr. Hood, I thought I'd ask you, as the principal of this Point Hope Village School, what chance have the kids got for an education?
We offer about the same chances for an education here as most any comparable school down in the other 48 states. We have the beginners through the 8th grade here.
And what kind of curriculum do they have?
They use about the same textbooks, same subjects and everything. In addition to the regular school work, we offer a little extracurricular like scouting and such work as that, some in crafts.
Well, do you have any special adaptations of the curriculum for the Eskimos? That is, do the picture books show animals that they've seen around here, or do they?
There's very few of those. We use just the same text, and most of the pictures and information in there is based on things down in the other states, which in most cases is kind of foreign to these students up here.
Must be a little confusing for them when they read about subway trains and that sort of thing.
Well, most of these children here have never even seen an automobile, probably, except in the picture show.
Well, who sponsors the school here?
This is under the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Our Juneau area office is what we're working under here.
But the kids can get enough education here to get us at least a start toward a higher education
they
at
do.
the high school and college.
They do. They get a good start here, and we had 17 children go out to high school this past year, and we got 10 more that's we hope's going out this year.
But they have to go way down to Mount Edgecombe down at Sitka.
That's right. They go to Mount Edgecombe. There'll be a few go to Chemawa in Washington, Oregon this year.
Well, that's a long way to go for a higher education. I suppose a good many of them decide to just stay here and hunt with their fathers.
No, it's surprising. A big part of them that finish the 8th grade do go. They're anxious to get out and go to school and try to improve their chances for making a living, either in the village or out.
We had come into Point Hope with a bush pilot, sweeping low over the ice and under the fog and landing on a flat sandbank. We had almost 1,000 pounds of equipment and naturally needed some transport. I asked for a truck, but there was not one vehicle with wheels in the village. Our gear was transported by dog sled. There is no well or running water there. Permafrost forbids it. Drinking water is melted ice from the ocean, which does not retain any salt. The youngsters here, one would think, are removed from civilization, but civilization will not let them nor their elders alone. I don't mean the fact that a rock and roll record can be played on the one jukebox in the village. Another attribute of our 20th century hangs over their every waking hour and causes a dreadful fear. "15 miles or so down the coast is Cape Thompson. It is a place which is hardly known now, but may someday become famous. There, the Atomic Energy Commission wants to blast a harbor with a nuclear explosion. No matter that the harbor, when made, will have no use because a range of hills and mountains blocks transport inland, no matter that a little farther down the coast is a perfect natural harbor between Teller and Point Spencer with flat land behind it, no matter that a nuclear blast could pollute the ice upon which Point Hope depends for drinking water or destroy the fish and game, the villagers live in fear and hopelessness. They do not believe the scientists who tell them there is no danger, any more than you'd believe them if you knew an H-bomb would be exploded 15 miles from your own home. The postmaster of Point Hope is David Frankson, who is also the mayor. Mr. Frankson, as president of the village council, that is the equivalent of mayor of Point Hope, what do you consider the village's biggest problem?
Well, as being on that position, why, I feel that this plan of an atomic blast at Cape Thompson is a big thing in the village.
Well, how do the villagers feel about it?
Well, the village feel from the start of this plan, when they heard about it first, when they feel that this plan isn't any good for them and they don't want it.
Have the villagers done anything about this? Have they protested at all to the government?
Well, we sent a protest, that what I call petition.
Yes.
I had my council to make out a petition, and every member of the council signed it.
Yes.
And I did too, and sent it to the Atomic Energy Commission at California.
Oh, yes. You didn't write the president, or?
No, we didn't send it to president, but we sent the copy of our petition to ANS office at Juneau and governor's office at Juneau.
So that they definitely know, you assume that they know in Washington that you are against, that the whole village is against this experiment.
Well, probably, but I don't know it for sure.
Well, you've said it today, so I'm sure that eventually a lot of people will know about it.
Yeah, but main thing that we have in our mind all the time, that we don't want to see this blast at Cape Thompson. That everybody in the village here. It's only one step from Thompson. If blast is blasted down there, we'll be hunted to take it.
You're afraid it'll change your whole way of life?
I think so.
Have to get out of here or something.
Yeah, it may, but I don't think we're intended even to get away from this village, because we lived in our village in the rest of our lives, and we wanted to live in it in future.
You and all your ancestors before you for a long time.
What they say is about 2,000 years before Christ, our ancestors are living here.
And this is home.
And this is our home.
North, far to the north, is Point Barrow, the largest Eskimo community in the world. With regret and deepest sympathy, we left those kindly, unhappy fellow countrymen of ours in Point Hope, and we winged our way north along the ice pack toward Barrow. It was bleak, chill, forbidding. You wondered how a few thousand Eskimos had been able to adapt themselves to life in such an area of the world. What would happen to them in future? In Barrow, I met an Eskimo state senator, Mr. Eben Hobson, who's also a construction foreman.
Senator Hobson, standing here on the ice pack at Point Barrow, the northernmost point on the continental United States, which you represent in the state legislature, I'd like to ask you a question or two about your people, the Eskimos. First, what opportunity do they have to get a good education?
Well, in order to get the high school education, we have to transport our children a little over 1,000 miles to the only high school that's being operated by the Bureau of Indian Affairs in Sitka, is the Mount Eskimo High School.
And that means that a lot of your children can't get a high school education?
No, sir, that is right.
Because they have a quota, do they?
They have a quota which they give to each village.
Well, has there been any planning on a federal level or a state level for the future of your people who are now undergoing this transition into modern life?
As far as I know, there has been no planning at all for the future as far as the native children are concerned, and yet what little planning there is being done mostly by the ministerial organizations, and other than that, I have no other knowledge of any planning that's being done at the moment.
Nothing for the people as a whole?
No, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Hobson. And now, what have we learned from this report on the Indians and Eskimos of Alaska? The first impression is rapid cataclysmic transformation, ancient cultures being engulfed by the machine, a process of unplanned destruction. To civilization, the fact that an atomic explosion may poison the animals upon which a few hundred of the last hunting people on Earth depend is not important. But the fear of the village symbolizes the helplessness of ancient culture to stop a relentless future. These are people being uprooted, cast aside, without any training for a new life. But they keep a sense of humor, of pride and talents which should not be obliterated if we are to meet them without shame a generation from now. This is John McBain on the Arctic ice pack at Point Barrow.
This is National Educational Television.